everyone, it's me, Ryan Turford. I'm in my house, and you're listening to the PlayStation-rific podcast on the internet. It's the PlayStation Drive. I'm on a Discord call with my friend Matt Sowinski, and on our journey today, oh my god, for some reason you can't upgrade Horizon Zero Dawn, and there's cards in Marvel Knights, so jump on into the PlayStation Drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-dow.
Good Thursday to you, my dear friend Ryan.
Good Thursday to you as well, Matt. How are you doing on this lovely, lovely Thursday where it's not as hot anymore, which is good, but it's still there. It's still there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that the weather is finally starting to cool down. I went for a run this morning. It wasn't awful. I'm happy that that fall's on its way in. I've had enough of the last month of very, very hot, very, very humid summer. I'm over it. I'm good to move.
I mean, as fun as it is to be like, look at the temperature to be like, oh, with the humidity, it feels like it's 44 outside. You know, I'm glad I'm glad those days are over because, you know, that was a whole ordeal. But enough about that. Of course, this is the PlayStation Drive, the show where we talk about PlayStation all the time, except for right now where we talk about the weather. So, of course, if you like what we do and you want to support the show, there's a number of ways to do that. Number one, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at YouMeCaprice, where we tweet out all the stuff for all the shows, including if you want to have your question read on the show, that's how you go do that as well. You can also subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, all the places that podcasts are not sold. I was about to say sold, but you know, we don't sell our podcasts or anything like that. Also, you can leave us a little nice review on Apple Podcasts. And if we get a review, we'll read it on the show here. Also, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/YouMeCapri. You can see our beautiful faces every single week because there is a video version that goes live for the show every single week, except for if it's like the Xbox Drive this week where for whatever reason Adobe Premiere does not want to export it properly. So hopefully that doesn't happen with this episode and you're actually seeing us this time around. And then last but not least, if you want early access to this and all of our shows, you can do that over on patreon.com/YouMeCapri. Throw a little tip in the old tip jar, as well as you get some exclusive content, as well as some other stuff. We might have some upcoming things to talk about there soon. Wink, wink, for future reference. Nudge. Last but not least, by the time you're listening to this, we still haven't wrapped our Space Jam Xbox controller sweepstakes. So if you want to get in on that, again, you can leave a 5-star review over on the Xbox Drive podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. If you do that, you are entered to win a Goon Squad Space Jam controller that is for Xbox, I know, but as Matt's pointed out plenty of times on the show, you can use it on your PC or other things too, so it doesn't have to be with an Xbox. And it's a cool-looking controller, so it's even cool just to put on your shelf. So if you want to be entered to win it, especially because it's free stuff, I mean, you can head on over to the Xbox Drive Apple Podcast page and leave a review there for the show as well. But
it takes like 2 minutes, guys. Come on. It's an awesome controller. So easy to leave a review. Get in this. It's so dope. I want to go make like 6 accounts just so I can enter to win like 100 times over. But
I mean, we're trying to give it away, Matt. We want someone to have it, but apparently we're not getting there fast enough. So again, we hit 75 reviews on the Apple Podcast feed for the Xbox Drive. We'll be giving that away, and we're dangerously close at this point. So this week's probably your last chance to enter, because I imagine by next week's show, we'll hit that point and we'll be ready to kind of draw a winner. So if you want to get in there, definitely get in there now while you still have a chance. All right, let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It is time for the playlist. And we played some games this week, Matt. So I'm going to start with you. What did you play with this week, my friend?
I have become Ryan this week in my playlist. I spent about 4 hours with Psychonauts 2 so far. I am really enjoying it. It's the world is super weird in the best way possible. The writing has been great. We're going to have a review going up probably later today on our channel for it. But I think that it does a lot of things right. The platforming isn't exactly as tight as I would like. The combat is good. It's not great. But gameplay wise, I think it's really, really solid. But the world building and the writing and just the characters and everything has been fantastic so far. I'm so excited to kind of dive even more into it. Because it's really, really great. And I spent some more time with Final Fantasy XIV. There was a big sale going on. I almost bought mounts, but I made myself be a good boy for now and get around to the next sale. But I've continued on with MSQ and Heavensward. Continues to be awesome. like I'm really, really curious as to where this is going, and I'm starting to get back into the full swing of things of being a healer. So yeah, I'm anxious now though, because like I always get a bit of anxiety before going into like a new dungeon.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's one coming up soon because it's been a while and it's been a lot of MSQ stuff. And what I really appreciate about Heaven's Word so far too is that like a lot of the bigger battles are almost like smaller dungeons in this one, which I don't remember as much in ARR.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm having a great time with it, and I'm excited to keep going.
They make it feel a little bit more epic, anyways. Or the battles themselves in the MSQ just feel like they mean a little bit more than some of the ARR ones, which are kind of forgettable. So that's awesome that you're having such a great time. And again, you totally became me this week because I've been talking about Psychonauts kind of nonstop the last couple weeks, and then Final Fantasy 14, of course, I play all the time. And Matt, I did buy something off the store. I bought the Final Fantasy 7 mount, the motorcycle, which plays the music from Final Fantasy 7 when you ride the motorcycle. So yeah,
I was between that one and the Nimbus Cloud because like I just want to be Goku. Yeah. So like I was so torn between them that I was like, you know what? I'll wait. But yeah, I was so torn between those two because they look so cool.
They both are actually pretty awesome. Plus, I bought a little wind-up Tifa that just follows me around as well. So I bought that. I bought some stuff on the store this week because, of course, it wouldn't be a show if I didn't talk about Final Fantasy 14 at least a little bit, Matt. Because I played it a little bit this week, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. So the other two games I talked about are actually brand new to this show, but I did talk about them on the Xbox Drive this week as well. So I'm going to give you kind of similar impressions here, but I'm curious to know if you want to know anything about these games in particular. So number one, I played Aliens Fireteam Elite. And huge shout out to the developer of this game, Cold Iron Studios, who actually provided us a code for the game. So I wanted to say thank you to them for that, for testing that out. So Aliens Fireteam Elite, for those that don't know what this game is, it's actually a Left 4 Dead style game set in the Aliens universe, where essentially it's a 4-player co-op adventure. It's got linear levels that you go on with different missions with a bunch of different objectives kind of throughout the mission, and you're mostly fighting off xenomorphs in kind of the Left 4 Dead style. Like there's a bunch of like different types of xenomorphs as well. Like there's some that'll like spit acid at you, or they're like big hulking xenomorphs that take a lot of bullets to take down. Again, very similar to some of the like the 4 like zombie classes that you'd fight in a game like Left 4 Dead. So it's a very similar system to that, but it's a third-person shooter instead of a first-person game. There's also an element of cover in this game. I don't know why it's a cover shooter at all, because the xenomorphs, for the most part, are just running straight at you. So it's not like you're popping out of cover to shoot at them and then hiding behind it, because, I mean, for the most part, they're just going to run at your face instead. So it seems kind of weird to me that system's even in the game at all. But for the most part, I'm actually really enjoying my time with it. I'm actually a big fan of the Alien and Aliens films, and especially Aliens in particular, which was a very formative movie for me as a child. So I am really excited to be playing a new Aliens game that is actually pretty fun, especially because like the Aliens games have always been hit or miss games over the years, any game based on the franchise. But it wasn't until Alien Isolation came out where I was like, okay, like this is kind of my ideal kind of alien game set in this universe. And Fireteam Elite, while it's not a perfect game and it's not amazing, I would say it's a pretty serviceable Aliens game that is a lot of fun and definitely doesn't really have like a lot of problems or anything like that. I mean, if you want to play by yourself, you can play with AI teammates, and they actually do a pretty good job. So I am actually enjoying this game a lot. I wouldn't say, again, it's a game of the year contender or anything like that, but it's just fun to kind of just turn my brain off, go in and shoot a bunch of xenomorphs. Like it's actually a fairly fun game. So I'm glad that I checked that out.
So I actually have a question, because you're not usually too big on multiplayer games, right? So are you playing this solo, or have you played with the co-op stuff at all? Like have you tried?
I've done both. So the problem is I don't really know anyone else who has this game except Mr. Badbit, and we just haven't been able to link up to play co-op together. So I've mostly been playing with randoms, and that is always hit and miss in a game like this, especially if you don't use voice chat and whatever. So I've been more likely to actually play with bots this time around, especially because the bots actually do a pretty good job. Cool. So, I mean, I haven't been running into any trouble with any of the missions or anything like that. So that's mostly what I've been doing because, again, it's been tough to kind of find people that I know who have this game. And then the other game I want to throw out there that I tried is the Riders Republic beta, which was out over the weekend. So I should preface this and I preface this on the Xbox Drive as well, but essentially there were two different betas for the Riders Republic. There was a closed beta that had an NDA attached to it and stuff like that I didn't participate in at all. So if there was anything in that particular version that I don't talk about here, that's why, because I actually played the open beta that had no NDA attached. Because I wanted to do that so we could talk about it on the show, because I thought it'd be an interesting game to talk about. And Riders Republic, I actually had a lot of fun with the beta for it. It actually seems like it's going to be a pretty promising game. So the way I actually pitched this to Sean, and I'm going to kind of pitch the same way here, even though a lot of our PlayStation audience might not actually, get the reference, but it really, more than any other game, it really reminded me of Forza Horizon over on the Xbox side. Everything from the presentation to the use of color to the way kind of the mission structure is set up to the open world itself. Like, it very much is reminiscent of a Forza Horizon game, where essentially it's kind of this big open space, and you can select between a bunch of different mobility options. Like, you can do snowboarding, you can do biking, BMX biking, you can do wingsuit flying over the environment. You can traverse a bunch of different ways in this game, and of course, there's a bunch of different missions on the map itself that you can, as you explore, you find the different missions or the different races, and you take them on in one of those three ways essentially. And I actually thought the controls were really tight, the races were really well designed, and honestly had a lot of fun playing the beta. I played it way more than I thought I was going to, because I was actually really getting into it. And I was already pretty excited for the final game, because I actually thought that the trailer they showed for Riders Republic actually seemed pretty cool. Not so much the CG one, but when they started to show gameplay and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I can see myself really playing this, even though I'm not like a huge extreme sports person. But I really love Forza Horizon in kind of the way that they structure the open world, and it almost feels like a car PG almost. And that was kind of the same feeling I got from this game, where it really felt like that similar style of games. So I'm actually really excited to check this one out. Again, on the shows, for the most part, we pretty much play everything that Ubisoft puts out. So I can definitely tell you that we will be playing this, and at the very least, I know Sean and I will be talking about that. I don't know if you're at all interested in this, Matt. What do you think about Riders Republic? Are you all interested in this game?
Yeah, I am actually. Like, it does look pretty cool, and I'm excited to kind of see more from it. I think for me, it's a bit more of a wait and see, because I'm just curious to see how it kind of comes together. But I think it does look cool.
Yeah, for sure. So I imagine we'll probably have an extra mile that talks about that a little bit later in the year, but. So far, I'm actually pretty excited about Riders Republic, and I guess we'll see more in the coming months. The only rough thing for Riders Republic is it's launching in kind of a crowded window, so it might fly under the radar for some people. So I think more people might be in kind of the wait and see camp like you are, Matt. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
I just like the pun there. Yeah. It might fly under the radar. That was a good one.
The best part is I didn't even catch that until you mentioned that. Anyways. I'm slamming the brakes on this conversation after that unintentional pun. It is time for some breaking news. So I was telling Matt off air, I was like, man, I was really scrounging for things to put in the document this week, because I was like, I don't know if there's actually much news in PlayStation land besides the new crop of PlayStation Plus games. But then this morning, we got a whole bunch of stuff from PlayStation proper, which I'm excited to talk to Matt about here. So let's dive into them. So first on the docket, number one news story with a bullet. The next PlayStation Showcase has been announced. Look for it on Thursday, September 9th. That's a week from today at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. They said there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff teasing up basically the rest of the year and then next year. So it sounds like this is going to be a pretty big showcase. This isn't just a state of play. This is a PlayStation 5 showcase. That's what they worded it as, which... if we kind of base that off what we saw last year with the only other PlayStation showcase that has ever existed, when the PlayStation 5 was kind of getting revealed for the first time, that was like a 2-hour presentation with a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm imagining something similar here. Like, it sounds like it's going to be longer than a state of play, and kind of a much bigger deal. So, Matt, what I want from you first, do you have any predictions for this? What do you think we're going to see in this showcase? Because, again, they didn't really name any game by name. So who knows at this point?
Oh, God, I can't wait. Finally, Ryan, finally. We speculated, and we're finally here. I think I saw that they did confirm it's going to be about 40 minutes long.
Okay.
So we do know it's kind of sitting in that time frame. I definitely think we're going to get a longer look at Horizon Forbidden West. That's kind of their big upcoming one that we know about. I'm sure we're going to get a Deathloop trailer because, which I really hope we don't. Like, I understand if we get like a minute. I kind of hope we get like a minute off of it, and that's about it. The game is imminent. It's going to be coming out days after the showcase. I don't think we need to see any more from it at this point. So I hope we don't get a ton from that. I definitely think we're actually going to see God of War.
Yeah,
because I think that's something that they've been teasing for a while. You know, we already got that very, very short, title reveal last year. So I definitely think we're going to see that. And I kind of think we're going to get some surprises for the rest of this year. I do think so. PlayStation has a couple cards in the back of their, in their pocket kind of ready for the next few months. I don't think it's going to be anything massive. I think we're going to get a couple cool indies, or we might get some, cool third-party announcements. But I think that if Spider-Man is coming to Marvel's Avengers this year, this is probably the time that they're going to talk about it, or TGS for that matter. Yeah. But I really think we're going to get a couple new reveals. I think the new Bluepoint game, whatever they're working on, I think will probably be shown there. If they're actually buying Bluepoint with those, speculative leaks that we saw a little while ago, this is probably where we're going to see it. And if we see that, then I'm guessing we're going to get their next game. I'm really excited. I can't wait. I'm just so happy that it's finally happening. I just want to know what's upcoming. And again, I don't have my expectations up for the rest of this year. I do think we'll see something, but I'm really excited to see where we're going next, Ryan. What about you? What do you think we're going to see from this event?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like for the certainties, for sure. I think obviously Horizon, for sure. They'll show more of that game. Deathloop, there will be a Deathloop trailer. I'm sorry, Matt. I don't want to see one either, but there will be one. There will also be, I'm sorry, Matt, a Death Stranding director's cut trailer here as well. Oh
God, I forgot about that. Yes,
and especially because it's also out later this month, so of course there will be one.
Kojima already confirmed it.
Yeah, so there's that. I didn't even see the confirmation, but that's good to know that I'm on the right page with that. Otherwise, everything is up in the air because I think we'll probably see, you're right about God of War. We'll probably see like a cinematic trailer for God of War, like probably no gameplay, just like kind of setting up kind of the tone of whatever the story is going to be for God of War Ragnarok, provided that's even the title, because maybe they actually give us a different title for God of War here. So yes, definitely I think God of War will be here as well. Beyond that, I know a lot of people are calling for Spider-Man 2 here. I think it might still be too early for them to show Spider-Man 2 because I don't think it's coming out next year. And I think that I would be hesitant to think that they'll show anything beyond 2022 at this showcase. I mean, you never know. Mm-hmm. It's Sony. They could show anything, but just in my gut, I feel like they're probably not going to go anything beyond 2022. And then, yeah, you're right. I think whatever Bluepoint's next game is, they'll show it here. Maybe this is where we finally hear what's going on with Konami. We know, for example, that Castlevania collection with the Game Boy Advance games has been rated, but they still haven't announced it yet. So who knows? And that's supposed to be coming out this year. So that's another thing that could be shown here. Also, the Persona fan in me has to ask, Matt.
Oh my God.
Because we know that Persona announcement is supposed to be happening this month. Sean and I actually talked about it on the Xbox Drive yesterday because I thought, okay, with no other big shows, maybe they showed that during TGS this year. But do you think there's a possibility we see that first Persona 25th anniversary announcement here, Matt?
I think there's a chance. But my gut's telling me that whatever they're doing with the whole thing, I think we're gonna see it more outside of PlayStation. Like it'll obviously whatever's coming will obviously be on PlayStation. But I wouldn't be surprised if what comes next will be multi-platform. So if it is, I think that is more of a TGS thing. So I definitely think there's a possibility we see it, but my bet's on TGS. And actually, Ryan, while you were talking, I also am kind of wondering, are we going to see The Last of Us Parts 2 multiplayer finally revealed?
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Maybe.
Because it's been a while. Like they said last year that they're, that a year from then, that was kind of when they were getting ready for. And I think this is kind of the right time. And that would probably make for a good fall release if it's ready, right? Like, I mean, that's not something massive, but it's something that's going to get a lot of people excited. Maybe
they announce as part of the factions reveal that the Last of Us 2 director's cut is coming out for PlayStation.
Wouldn't surprise
5.
me.
Yeah. That may be a possible thing. And I only threw the Persona thing in there because it would just be hilarious if it was just Persona 5 Royal Director's Cut was the announcement. And it was for PlayStation 5.
I would still buy it. That's the problem.
That's
I would still buy it.
The problem is I would also still buy it, and they'd probably come in some goofy collector's edition. I'd buy that too. So that's a Persona fan. So yeah, I hope that's not it. But yeah, so there's all that, and I mean, who knows? I'm ready to be surprised. I want to see what Sony's got like hiding in the wings. I think there will be quite a few third-party things here. Maybe this is where we start hearing about some of the rumored Konami Sony collaborations here, like maybe something like Silent Hill or something else. And of course, speaking of Silent Hill, I mean, we can't have a PlayStation 5 showcase, Matt, without Abandoned, right?
Without Blue Box.
Blue Box Studios. I can't even say that with a straight face. I just can't. I wanted to stop talking about them, but man.
I'm gonna tinfoil hat for a second, Ryan, here. There was a lot of speculation that this was supposed to be happening at the beginning of August. I wonder if that was the original plan, but because of everything, it got pushed out to September, which is why the friggin' Blue Box app launched and nothing happened with it. So if there is something more to this, which I really don't think there is anymore, but let's be silly for a second. Maybe it's then. Maybe we're finally gonna figure out what's going on. If not, then we'll see.
It's gonna be exciting. So either way, look for that next week. We haven't talked about this off air yet because we literally just got this announcement this morning. I suspect this show will probably come out after the State of Play, though. So we won't be out at our normal time next week, but we will be talking about the State of Play on next week's show. So I'm calling it State of Play, but it's the PlayStation Showcase. It's too confusing, Matt. It's fine.
I know.
But anyways, next news story. Speaking of Horizon Forbidden West, this got some people talking this morning on Twitter. So Horizon Forbidden West's different versions were announced because the game actually went up for pre-order this morning. And there are some interesting things to note about this PlayStation blog article about it. So first of all, there's 5 different versions of this game, including digital and physical versions. So of course, you've got your standard physical and digital versions of the game. You got the digital deluxe edition, which is digital only. That's all normal that we expect from every PlayStation game. But then you've also got the special edition, which is a physical version of the game that comes with a mini art book and a steelbook, which is physical only. And then you've got a collector's edition of the game, which comes with a statue as well as the mini art book. But it's a physical version of the game, but only comes with a digital copy of the game. And it's $249.99 Canadian dollars. And then if you want to go above that, there is the Regala edition, which comes with everything that the collector's edition has, but then it comes with a different statue from the collector's edition. So the statue itself is basically the one of the new kind of mammoth robots, and then a miniature Aloy that goes along with it. But the collector's edition just has like this like chrome metal version of it. But then the Regala edition has this like totally painted, like almost like tribal version with like a version, like a thing on top of it where a bunch of, some of the enemies will sit and kind of ride it. It's like we saw in the initial trailer for the gameplay reveal for Horizon. So that is also physical only, but with a digital copy of the game instead of a physical copy. And that's 300 Canadian dollars. So on top of all that confusing mess, they also noted on the PlayStation blog article for this that there will not in any way be an upgrade path for the game between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So essentially how this is going to boil down is essentially with the standard edition and the special edition of the game, whatever version you buy, that's the version you have. So it doesn't come with, a free upgrade. There's no option to upgrade it beyond that point either. So you're essentially make sure if you buy those versions of the game, which are of course the 2 physical only versions of the game, that you buy the version that you actually want to keep essentially. So if you're going to be buying a PlayStation 5 in February, make sure to buy the PlayStation 5 version, for example. But if you buy the digital deluxe version or either the 2 collector's editions I talked about, they give you access to both versions of the game. Although, again, it would be silly for the collector's edition or the Regala's edition to not include that because they're stupidly expensive. So for pricing for the versions of the game, of course, the PS4 version is $79.99 Canadian. The PS5 version is $89.99 Canadian dollars, and then the digital deluxe edition is $99 Canadian, or basically $100 when you round it up before tax. There is no word on whether the Regala edition is actually coming to Canada either, because that's actually a US PlayStation Store exclusive. It's not coming to any other retailers in the United States. So who knows if it even comes out here or if it's even an option for us. That was a lot to go through.
There's
a lot to unpack here. So essentially, if you want to get basically the cross-buy version, though, you have to pay the $100 for the digital deluxe edition that comes with both versions of the game, essentially, if you want to get digitally. That's kind of what this boils down to. So, Matt, after all that, what do you think about this?
So, I mean, we'll start off with the positive thing. All of these editions look dope. The statues look awesome. The Regal edition looks beautiful. Like, everything about it looks super, super nice. I'm not going to be picking up any of the collector's editions just because I still need to play through the original, and I don't want to hop in on a collector's edition on a game that, again, I still have to finish the original. But what really bothers me, Ryan, and what really sucks is how hard of a line PlayStation is drawing in the sand when it regards to their different editions across the PS4 and the PS5. Because Xbox has made it so easy, so open, so like you buy the game, whatever edition that you're playing is the edition that you're going to be having, which is good. It's great. It's easy. Play anywhere, rocks. This sucks.
Yep.
This sucks bad because especially, and people on Twitter were quick to dig this up, back at I think it was the PS5 announcement when they were talking about the launch games, which at that point Horizon Forbidden West was still slated as one. They said that the upgrades were going to be free. The PS4 to PS5 upgrade on the Sony blog, on the PlayStation blog website, says it's going to be free, and they've backtracked on this. Now, that could be because the game was delayed, so it's no longer considered a launch window game, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this really, really is just... This is like PlayStation 3, egotistical Sony all over again. There is no reason for it. Like the $99.99 Canadian dollar digital deluxe edition. Seriously, like isn't this the same thing that like EA and Activision are doing with some of their games? Where if you want access,
no, it's actually worse because it's essentially a $20 because when you buy Call of Duty, for example, to get the cross-buy version, it's $89.99 Canadian or $60 US, which is the standard price of a PlayStation game. Whereas essentially, there's a $20 difference between the PlayStation 4 base version and the digital deluxe version. Now, mind you, the digital deluxe version comes with a couple skins for Aloy and then a digital art book and a digital soundtrack. So in theory, you're not getting nothing for that extra $10. But
sure,
what if you just wanted to own both versions? For example, because you can't find a PlayStation 5 right now, but you still want to play Horizon next February, but you don't want to get those extra things. You just want to pay $89.99 and get both. Like that sucks. I mean, especially because it would be different if Sony hadn't already set the precedent with Death Stranding director's cut or Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, where essentially the upgrade path is right there, and they give you an option for those that want to upgrade. Because I don't get me wrong, I think I don't have a huge problem with Sony charging for upgrades if they feel that the upgrade is worth it, and they seem to feel in this case that the upgrade is worth it anyways. But to lock people in like that, this just is a feel bad all around. Especially because don't get me wrong, it'd be different if this was the plan, if this was what they unveiled from the very beginning, because then they would have set the expectation properly that, hey, maybe we can't do this on PlayStation 5. Maybe you do have to, rebuy the game if you want the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 version. But they've shown from first party that they can do this. So that's why I'm personally much harder on them about this type of thing, as well as the internet collectively on Twitter this morning, just reading, people going through this and seeing this very small line of text at the bottom of the PlayStation blog that kind of explains this. I think that's where the big disconnect is here.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, I don't understand why. It's not like they can't eat the cost. It's not like there isn't a way to do this properly. I don't have an inherent issue with games costing more on PlayStation 5. I understand to an extent. But I think what bothers me is just, especially because PS5s are still not readily accessible. And I don't know by February if they will be either. Like the reports about shortages were going to go on until late 2022. Yeah. So even people who want a PlayStation 5 cannot get one, who want to play Horizon Forbidden West on their PlayStation 5 when they do buy one, but they also want to play it when it comes out. Like they're forcing too many people's hands here, and I don't like it. And the other thing that really bothers me about the digital deluxe edition is it actually, and there's not confirmation one way or the other yet, but there seems like they're locking some photo mode stuff behind the digital deluxe edition as well.
Yeah, specific poses for Aloy are locked behind there for photo mode.
Which sucks, because I mean, like, photo mode, especially in the first one, was massive, right? Like, there's a lot of people who really love that photo mode, and I just don't like kind of that piecemeal approach here. I understand stuff like skins, but for photo mode, which is something that a lot of people really enjoy, I just think I don't like what they're doing here. I don't like the precedent that they're setting, and I'm worried about stuff like God of War, and when the next big PS4/PS5 game comes out, if this is going to be the standard. I really hope they change their minds about this. I really hope that because of the backlash, they make some moves, because this just does not sit right with me going into what should be an awesome showcase next week, going into the future. And, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, especially because we know, for example, God of War and Gran Turismo both. Also, I totally forgot about Gran Turismo when we were talking about kind of things we were going to see at the showcase. I think we'll see that there as well. But like Gran Turismo is also another cross-gen game too. So I imagine like both God of War and Gran Turismo are probably going to end up doing the same thing too. So yeah, it kind of sucks that this is kind of the way it is. And I really hope that maybe when some of those releases come around, they kind of change things around, because you're right. Like, it's so hard for people to find PlayStation 5s now. Like, and that's not going to change between now and Horizon comes out. So like locking someone in like that, I think just hurts, or it just is going to make people maybe, reconsider, or maybe just buy the PlayStation 4 version. So then you're not getting them at that, higher price point that you kind of want them at anyways. Like, because it sounds like they're trying to funnel people into this even higher tier than the normal PlayStation 5 version with the digital deluxe version, and kind of like upsell them on this essentially, because it gives you better value in quotations. And I think it's only going to at least probably hurt. I don't think it's going to hurt sales necessarily, but I think it's going to hurt maybe the idea of maybe buying them on like going anything above maybe the normal PlayStation 5 version of the game. So PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 will probably be the two like best selling SKUs by a far, I think.
I just think it just kind of destroys the goodwill that they've been trying to build, and especially like with the shortages and everything, I think people have been understanding. And it's just, I think that this isn't right, especially when you have Xbox on the polar opposite, most consumer-friendly side handling it. I think PlayStation just taking this hard stance sucks. Yeah,
like choosing between this and then the Xbox side, where it's like, hey, by the way, not only do we give you free upgrades for all our games, but you would also pay $10 a month and have access to all our brand new games day one.
Exactly.
So it's just it's a harder spell, especially like, don't get me wrong, right now with Xbox not having much out, like it's less of a big deal, but if they still continue to do this tactic like 2 or 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years from now, when we start to see some of those bigger Xbox games come out, like Perfect Dark, like Fable and whatnot, I think this is going to be a harder sell. So, anyways, we should probably move on because there are a couple of quick topics we want to get out of the way before we end the show here. Also, PlayStation Plus games have been announced for September. This is actually a pretty good lineup. We've got Overcooked, All You Can Eat, Hitman 2, and Predator Hunting Grounds. Overcooked is the PS5 game that we're essentially getting from this, and the other two are PlayStation 4 games. I think this is actually a pretty solid lineup, even though, again, Predator Hunting Ground was like kind of a disappointing game. Getting it on PlayStation Plus, I think, is actually going to be a pretty solid. But Matt, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm super happy with this. Like, Overcooked is fantastic. This bundling all of the Overcooked that exists into one spot right now is just great. Hitman 2, I've seen people talking about, make sure when you grab Hitman 2, you go pick up like the Hitman 3 preview thing, because you can actually play it through there as well, and apparently it runs better and looks a little bit better. And Predator Hunting Grounds is always a game I've been curious about, but just never wanted to pull the trigger on. This is a great way for me to play it. I think this is a really, really solid month.
Yeah, for sure. And sticking with new games coming to PlayStation services, we got a PlayStation Now update, but it's not the normal update for PlayStation Now. We don't have all the games coming next month, but we do have 5 classic Final Fantasy games coming to PlayStation Now. So, and there's going to be a new one every month essentially until January. So starting this month on September 7th, we get Final Fantasy 7. Then on October 5th, we get Final Fantasy 8. And then November 2nd, we get Final Fantasy 9. And then on December 7th, we get Final Fantasy 10/10-2. And then on January 4th, we get Final Fantasy 12, all coming to PlayStation Now. I think this is actually a good move. These games were actually on Xbox Game Pass for a long time, and they actually just let the service, essentially Square usually only likes their games being on services like this for a year. So make sure if you have PlayStation Now and you haven't played these games already, make sure you play them within kind of a year, because that's probably when they'll end up leaving the service. I think this is actually a pretty good move, though, especially because Final Fantasy is pretty popular, and not everyone wants to shell out money for some of these remakes, but maybe they want to explore some of these classic games. Matt, do you agree? What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is awesome. I think I like that they're piecemealing them out. I actually do think that this works. I think kind of dropping them all at once might have been a little bit overwhelming. So I actually do like the kind of release schedule and the fact they're upfront about it. And yeah, I think it's a great way for people to experience Final Fantasy, especially with, that's another thing that we missed talking about the showcase, Final Fantasy 16. Whether we see something there or at TGS, I think it's a good time, and I think it's a good call.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get a new trailer for it because it's. I'm imagining it's still on track to come out next year, so we'll see. All right, and then last thing I want to talk about before we get to questions, because we have a little bit of time for this. Marvel's Midnight Suns got its gameplay trailer. So we talked about it on last week's show, where it's essentially this is the Firaxis XCOM style Marvel game. But people had interesting things to say about the gameplay trailer for the game, kind of the first look, because it's not your traditional XCOM experience. Because this game, first of all, we saw more of kind of the talking to your Marvel allies in the base and kind of spending time with them, and then you get certain upgrades from them. You get like passive buffs, I guess, from them, depending on what characters you decide to hang out with. You can't romance any of them, of course. We talked about that on last week's show, but then they showed the combat, and this is where people were a little divided on this, Matt. And I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. The combat uses a card system, which is very, a lot of people either love or dislike this kind of mechanic. So essentially, rather than having the XCOM style, hey, you select your weapon or your special ability and it has a certain percentage of hitting the enemy, this time around, for the most part, you can either run up to the enemies or use some of your cards from a distance, depending on what card you feel like using. And it has basically a 100% chance to hit and deal its damage. But you basically build a deck for each character ahead of time, and then it randomly selects cards from that deck, and those are essentially the skills and attacks you have to work with. There's no even basic attack in there. You're just selecting one of the cards, and it does damage. So before I tell you what I think, because I talked about this with Sean on the Xbox Drive, I want a fresh take, because I know you were pretty positive about this on Twitter, Matt. So tell me, what do you think about this gameplay trailer? Are you excited by this?
Yeah, I'm stoked. I love card battlers and I love deck builders, so this is kind of totally up my alley. The more I thought about it, the more the gameplay really reminds me of Mega Man Battle Network, which is a similar style. Like as you go in, you get random chips. So this actually really works for me. The social side of it looks cool. I'm curious to see the depth of not obviously you're not gonna be able to romance them, but the depth of the relationships and how the spending time with each other will work. But the battle system is something that I'm actually really excited about. I understand that card battlers is not everybody's cup of tea, but this for me gave me, like I said, Mega Man Battle Network / like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memory vibes. And I trust the team at Firaxis. I think what they're doing is something cool, and especially because they're just, trying to shake things up a little bit. I know people were nervous about them being predatory with microtransactions when it comes to this. They've already gone ahead and confirmed that there will be no microtransactions at all for any of the cards. They will be purely cosmetic microtransactions, which still makes me upset because I don't see the need in a single player game to have costumes like that. Like I'm sure we'll be able to unlock plenty through the game itself, but I just bugs me that, of course, it's 2K, they're going to try and slide it in, but I'm actually really positive on this. I'm really curious to see more. I really want to just see like a full level played out to see how much the cards shift, how they exactly work, because we have some idea from, the trailers, but I kind of want to see a full mission played out. What about you, Ryan? What do you think?
So I'm not going to lie. I on the show yesterday with Sean, we were both pretty down on this because I don't like card battling in strategic like RPGs like this, or even just RPGs in general. Because I've played a bunch over the years, and what I don't like about it is the element of randomness. Because if you don't draw the right card, then you might not be able to take out a specific enemy you need to, or deal. Like you're not able to. You have less options available to you, or you have less control over what options you have available to you in a very strategic looking game, essentially. So for me personally, I'm less into it, but I trust Firaxis. I feel like they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't feel, that it would play really well or be fun. So I'm willing to give it a chance, but this type of thing is the type of thing that makes it so that it shifts it from being a day one must play for me to I'll play it later when it's on sale kind of thing. Like, I think that's kind of what this does. But I'm curious to know what people think about it after the game releases and after we get it in our hands. And I know you'll probably be playing it on day one, Matt. So I'm curious to kind of pick your brain about it a little bit later when it comes out. So I'm excited from that aspect. But for me personally, this just kind of shifts it away from being kind of a day one purchase, I think, for me. So, but I am, cautiously optimistic that the game turns out to be awesome. So there you go. But let's not dwell on this any further. Let's jump into the carpool. Listeners at home, if you want your questions read on the carpool, of course, we put up a new question post every Wednesday asking for questions on our Twitter at Yumi Capri's on Twitter. You can also join our Discord, the Yumi Capri Discord. It's free to join. There's a link in the show notes for that. As well, you can actually leave a question on the YouTube video and have your question answered that way. Just like Dan at Dannohh12 did on Twitter. He asked the question, if I have yet to see a third-party company release a controller for the PlayStation 5 that isn't strictly for PlayStation 4 backwards compatibility, would you like to have the option, or are you okay with the first-party brand only? So, Dannohh, I'm the type of person that doesn't like buying third-party controllers at all. I mean, ever since, the GameCube, PS2, Xbox days, like that's when I bought, like the last time I really bought third-party controllers. But for the most part, I really usually don't like buying third-party controllers. They just never ever feel right to me personally. So I'm okay with just sticking with the DualSense stock version. And then when they have new colors for it, I'll buy those. But I'm probably not ever going to buy a third-party controller. But what do you think about this, Matt? Do you actually buy third-party controllers for your consoles?
I used to, same as you, Ryan, back in like the GameCube, PS2 days. I bought a lot, but I actually have no problem with them. I think that the DualSense is probably a little more complicated than controllers of the past with its haptics and everything else that it's doing, which is probably why we're not seeing as many or any third-party companies kind of jumping in just yet. I do want to see them, though. I do think that from an accessibility and a monetary standpoint, they're usually cheaper. They're usually easier to buy. That they can kind of get a little bit weirder with them. So for people who because a new first-party controller is quite expensive. With an upfront cost. So I do like that the option for people who, are looking to spend less on their controllers. So I hope we do see some soon, because I do think it's a good thing. It's just not generally what I go towards, unless it's something really cool or something really outlandish. But yeah, I think they're a good thing, and I hope we see some soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same camp as far as accessibility is concerned. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like having a cheaper option, I think would be great for people, even though I personally don't like third-party controllers myself. I can understand why they exist. And I do think we'll see some eventually. It's just probably going to take another year or two probably before we start to see kind of some of them cropping up, I think. Especially like maybe one with better battery life, for example, might be something. Because I don't know how many, 12-hour Final Fantasy 14 sessions you've ever had, Matt. But if you try and play that game with one controller, you're charging that controller twice during that play session. So
I can imagine.
There you go. All right, next up, Seamus McIsaac at Famous Seamus asks, so I asked this one time on the Xbox Drive, but I wanted to ask it here because I think it's a fun question. If you could do an episode of the PlayStation Drive in any vehicle that was in a PlayStation game, what vehicle would you choose? So for this, I don't know how many iconic vehicles there are in PlayStation first-party games that I could really think of, because I was kind of racking my brain about this one. I would say maybe just Ratchet Starship. Maybe we could do like kind of an episode kind of flying around the cosmos and I'm just blanking on the name of the ship that Ratchet has. But I was thinking maybe that one, or just any of the cars from Twisted Metal maybe would be another one, like Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck. Maybe imagine doing a show from the ice cream truck from Twisted Metal. But what do you think about this question, Matt?
Yeah, so I actually didn't really stick to, PlayStation first party, but a game that started on PlayStation. I'd love to do a show in the Gummy Ship from Kingdom Hearts. I think that'd be fun. Ooh. I think those ships can be pretty ridiculous, and it, just kind of floating around the cosmos and seeing some Disney planets while we talk about PlayStation would be a fun time.
That would be pretty sweet. I mean, as much as I don't love Disney, I think that would be pretty cool. And last question comes to us from Todd Oxtra at Toxtra. He asks the question, after seeing all of the Xbox custom controllers and Halo Series X console, when does PlayStation actually start delivering more than just jet black and red DualSense controllers? Also, when will be the very first custom PS5? So I'm actually kind of surprised when they did the Horizon announcement today that they didn't have like any Horizon custom accessories, because I think that I thought in the back of my mind, like at the very least they were going to do probably a Horizon custom controller for the release of Horizon, and maybe they still do, kind of closer to launch. But I just figured they were going to announce that when they announced all the Horizon stuff today. But if it's not Horizon, then I think they'll definitely do one for God of War. Like at the very least a controller, if not like a red PS5, like God of War themed console. Like, how cool would that be? Like, I think that would be really awesome. Otherwise, maybe when Spider-Man 2 comes out, whenever that happens, like obviously they'll do another one, but I think we'll start to see Sony do it more custom consoles. But what we saw with Xbox, we're seeing kind of anecdotal evidence about this, is that they kind of held back some stock of Series X's to do the Halo Series X, essentially, because they'd not been on shelves for a couple months, and it sounds like that's kind of why, is they were kind of, building up the amount of Series X's to do this limited edition console. So with the shortages, I would be very surprised though if they announce a console before the end of 2022, like a new one. But I mean, I said the same thing about Xbox and they surprised me with that. So who knows? But Matt, what do you think about this question?
I think you're entirely right. I don't think we're going to see many, if any, like custom PS5s until they're readily available in store. I would love to be wrong because, like you said, I thought it was going to be Horizon, and it might still be, but God of War I think seems like a pretty good expectation to have. But I think until we kind of see more consoles readily available, I think that's probably when we'll start seeing some special editions. PlayStation's always been weird with special editions anyway. Like, we didn't have too many, special editions PS3 and PS4s compared to how much cool stuff Xbox was doing. So I think it's going to be a little bit. In regards to the controllers, I have no idea why. I have no clue why they're not getting weirder with them sooner. Xbox started doing their design labs and stuff. I want to see PlayStation do more cool stuff with their controllers, and I want to see it sooner rather than just black and red, like Todd said. So I'm hoping you'll get some cool stuff soon. But yeah, as for PlayStations themselves, I don't think we're going to see anything. I think you're right, Ryan. I think 2023 at the earliest.
Yeah, exactly. As far as controllers, like I think they'll probably do those ahead of time. But consoles, especially with how it's selling, I don't think they're going to do any before then. But we'll see. But anyways, we got to go. But before we go, Matt, plugs go.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at burnout_Matt and on YouTube over at youtube.com/burnoutbrighter. We're currently participating in the Indie Houses event where we're covering a whole bunch of cool indies, so make sure you come check us out.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on Twitter at Yumi Capri's, as well as on YouTube at youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Matt Sawinski, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 16 of the PlayStation Drive, and we're out. The PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri, and I want to say thank you to each and every one of our patrons from the bottom of my heart from your support across all of our content. And let's start by thanking our CaPremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Johnathan Brown over at youtube.com/PM Entertainment. Our platinum producers, Robby Miller and TruckerSloth, and our gold members, ARGO, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Emily O'Kelly, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Benjicong, Marcus O'Neill, RJ Kern, Dannohh, Skinny Matt, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, Fuji, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support.